Alright, just wanted to give a quick overview, run through of I've been using Keyshot now for just over a year I think, but obviously now it's with the new Zbrush, the Keyshot bridge, it's going to become a hell of a lot more popular, and it is. It's a fantastic render, and it's absolutely perfect to go hand in hand with Zbrush. As I say, I've been using it for over a year, so it was just a matter of exporting and importing OBJs before. But this, with the bridge here, it just makes it so much easier. You don't have to decimate your models, import and export, all that messing around, reassemble them back in Keyshot in the scene. It's just one click, bang, and it's across. So as you see here, this this model here is about 20, maybe 20 odd badly named subtools. So coming in at just 9 million. So first things first, just up to your render drop down here, and render, you see external render drop down Keyshot here, that'll be disabled by default, so you just want to enable that, and that'll overwrite your BPR render. So when you click BPR render, instead of rendering, obviously using ZBrush's render, it's going to send all visible subtools across the Keyshot. So there's one more thing to do in Keyshot. I'll just jump across the Keyshot. This is Keyshot defaulted when it first opened, so if you just come up to Edit, Preferences, and under the Advanced tab here, you'll see this live linking. Just make sure that that's enabled, or ZBrush and Keyshot can't communicate with each other, so you just need to make sure those two things, that's enabled, live linking, and in ZBrush external render Keyshot. Right, so enough of the preamble. Right, so we're going to send all these visible subtools across. Just press the BPR render button, and you'll see the progress bar here. Obviously, depending on your poly count, it's going to take longer, but it's usually bang, there it is. No, I don't know. Yeah, it's still running fairly good here, even though I'm recording. Right, so that's basically all you have to do. If this, and you'll see here, if I right click, you get a pop up here, and if you right click on whichever of your models in the viewport, edit material, it'll bring you over to the material editor here, or else you can come over here from the project pane here, the material tab. You'll get a list of all your scene materials, and the reason these all appear duplicated is because each of these subtools contains their own material, so it's brought them all across, and you can see here it's created a temporary texture here in the diffuse slot. You just hover over, it should pop up the path there. Yeah, the path should be popping up there, but yeah, I think it's somewhere in my documents or something, users, whatever, my documents, and it's in the EXR, or there, sorry, there it is there, yeah, documents ever start, blah blah blah, and it's just a temporary EXR that's been applied here to the diffuse. So if you have poly painted your models or your meshes, your subtools, before bringing them over, your poly paint will transport across, so you don't need to set up UVs and export maps and all the rest of it. You can still do that and have your texture, but this temporary texture will be saved over here in this path. Right, so the navigation, firstly, it's very simple. It's the same as ZBrush for orbit, and it's just left drag the orbit around the scene, middle mouse button to pan, and middle mouse button wheel to zoom in and out, or else you can hold Alt and the right mouse button does the same thing as the middle scroll wheel. And you can also use these scene navigation tools up here. So if you're using the that the hotkeys are fairly standard now these days for most 3D packages except for ZBrush. But right, so that's you can see here basically Keyshot is it's a CPU based progressive render, so it's entirely using the power of your CPU. So you see here I have this set to, you can set the amount of cores you want to use. So I have 12 here, but I just have it set to 10, you know. If I'm going to be doing a render, I'll set it back over to 12. But when you're messing around setting up light and materials and the scene and all the rest of it, I generally have about a million things open at the same time. So you know, you just keep a couple of cores spare there. Even if they are all active, it doesn't seem to make a huge difference. I can still edit things in Photoshop or mess around in 3D Max or whatever at the same time. Or work on my latest masterpiece in Microsoft Paint. But however, right, let me see, what was I going to do? Yeah, so that's the navigation out of the way. Left, middle, and alt and right, or middle wheel. Right, so these are the main two panels or panes that you're going to use in Keyshot. Over here we have the project pane, and this is the library pane. So we have a scene here. You can see we have a scene tree hierarchy, and this is the main model that came over, and there's the hierarchy. These are all the subtools. So you know, if you, depending on what you're working on, if you name everything properly later on when you're applying materials and all that, it can become. This is Keyshot 5, but in previous Keyshots you couldn't select directly in the viewport, but now you can, and as soon as you select it in the viewport, denoted by this orange outline, it'll automatically jump in the scene tree hierarchy to whichever subtool or model you have selected. So you can see it's automatically jumping there. So that's the scene. You'll also have your cameras and whatever else in there. So material, this is like, I suppose, if you're used to traditional sort of create materials in 3D packages, this is like the material editor, where you will set the properties and input texture channels and all the rest of it for your materials. We'll talk a bit more about that later. Then you have the environment. This is the current environment that you have selected and its settings. So you'll be depending on what you have from the library as your scene environment, it'll show up over here. So I have a couple of basic settings here. You can don't believe it. Alright, I'm just going to have to pause this back in a tick. Now I have to say, I'm just back from that crash, and I have to say it doesn't really crash that often. It crashes a bit more than Keyshot. It crashes a bit more than Keyshot 4 as far as I can see, but continue on here anyway. So as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted, yeah, so here's your settings for whichever whatever your current environment happens to be. So this is the default startup HDR. You can mess around here, all the usual suspects: contrast, brightness, the size of it, which I don't find to do a huge amount, the height obviously, which drops it, raises or lowers it in relation to the horizon, and the rotation. You're probably going to find yourself using this a lot. It's obviously it's the same sort of stuff as HDR lighting or image based lighting, and that you might be used to already. So the background, if you have the lighting environment is shown as the background. Now I generally never use that. I generally use color, and then select your color. So if you want to do the likes of a product shot or something, you want to show the shadows here, ground shadows, you might leave that on, but a lot of the time I'll just pull that to a dark grey or a black or whatever, because I'm going to be rendering using the alpha channel and adding the background or whatever, depending on what you're doing. But that's usually what I like to do anyway. Or you can have your the backplate image, which would be from over here in the library tab. We'll get into that in a moment when I go across there. So I'm just going to disable ground shadows because I'm not using ground, but it can be handy depending on what you're doing, you know. Right, so that's the basics of that. You can also, it's a handy feature, use it now and again I suppose, but If you click here and edit HDRI, just drag it across. You know, you can add pins, you can add a sun and sky, so you can almost, it's like a really basic kind of editing or creation tool for sort of custom environment backgrounds. So you can add a pin. You can see if I just add pin, it's an extra light source. So I'll just move this out of the way a bit. So say for instance, we will make this just an obvious color red. You can see here it's automatically updating, and it's, you know, if I bring it right up to the top, it'll stretch out, or down to the bottom you can't really see it because of the intensity or the brightness. You can make it brighter. At the moment it's showing up as it looks like it's semi-transparent because it's set to add mode, the blend mode here. Seems to be staying the same, but however, so that's the basic HDR editor. So when you want to change your environment, if this is still hanging like this, it'll ask you to save, so you can actually save these out. You know, you can add more pins and more light source, whatever. So you can mess around with that to your heart's content. You can see here the effect it's having, but I'm gonna just go in. Yeah, I won't really mark because I'm not going to save it, but you can also just you know, select your pin and bin it. Righty here. Next thing is the camera. Now once you do bring your model in and you want to, you know, frame it out for whatever happens to be your final render, one of the first things to do really should be to, at the moment you see here, it's a free camera. So one of the first things to do, what I usually do, is I add a new camera. We just call that whatever, shot cam, and then just click this. Hang on a sec. Blah 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 blah. There, that's the pop up there. So no, I don't want to save that. Now come down to a shot cam. Just click that save button, and then you can lock the camera now. So you see I can't do anything, so I'll unlock that. Right, say we'll frame him out there, and yeah, that's lovely jubbly, and then we can just lock it. So depending on ooh, it won't lock, toggle lock. Right, it's locked there. Sometimes that little icon doesn't work, you just have to right click and toggle lock. So depending on your workflow, whether you're going to be screen printing, grabbing, you can just use your normal print screen on your keyboard. You can press P. If you press P, just press that now. You see just right down here, it only pops up for a minute. In Documents, Keyshot, Renderings, it's going to store that print screen for you in that folder. So you can do it like that. So if you have your camera locked and you're doing many different render passes with different materials and all the rest of it, you can just leave it rendering, head off and make a cup of tea or whatever tickles your fancy, whatever way you like to kill time, and then just come back. You'll know the noise will have cleaned up. When you're happy with it, then just bang, press P, and it's going to be stored in that folder. Or you can use the dedicated rendering settings, which I will get into in a while. I might, I might split it off, or sure, I'll just keep going with this one. Right, so that's the camera, and the important, you know what's important to do when you first get in. Just so you know, you could be using that, screen printing, and you've 4 or 5 render passes gone across, and then accidentally, you tumble the model, or you move the viewport around, and balls, you've lost that, and you've no way to get it back. So at least if you have your camera saved and locked, like I can go back to a free camera here, and then just bang, jump back to that camera, and it'll be saved. I don't know what that one is. Sorry, that was it there. I don't know where that came from. But however, that's what you want to be doing there. Now camera, I don't mess with any of this stuff. That's unlocked. Just if you just click look at point here, click, we'll say, on this big hooter, then the camera's gonna orbit around. It's gonna be focused on whatever you click. It'll automatically center up the viewport. You see, it'll center up, and then it's focused on that area. I think that's just their orthographics. Grid, never use it. Stay above ground. Never go near it. Perspective orthographic, and this is an obviously important one here. Your the lens, your camera lens, or focal length. So for usually, depending on what I'm doing, I usually set it between 80 and 90 for portrait type shots. Just like a real world camera, the same perspective you're going to get from the different focal lengths. Field of view, don't go near it. Ground grid, don't go near it. Lens effects, you can use your, if you want to do a straight render from Keyshot without just a beauty render, you can add all these in. You have a depth of field, obviously, and then these different effects here, lens effects and vignette and everything, but the usual bog standard stuff that's built into most renders these days. But I don't really use any of them. Maybe the odd time I might use the depth of field depending, but no, generally not. So you're welcome to mess around with them. So that's camera settings. Okay, this resolution here, this is going to be a preview resolution. I had a bit of when I first started, it was kind of annoying trying to, like, say for instance I use 3D Max. So 3D Max, you turn on your your safe frames. I'm thinking Maya, it's called your resolution gate or whatever. Turn on your resolution gate, your safe frames, position your camera frame up your scene, and then when you change the resolution with the aspect ratio locked, it's not going to change on screen. But first, it didn't seem to work like that in Keyshot. But so once you have your aspect here in your preview, it's going to affect your just drag this across. It's going to affect your resolution here. So you want to make sure the two of them are you want to kind of keep them the same. It's just something to bear in mind. I'll go into that later on. Right, next here is the similar to adjusting the brightness and contrast and everything of your HDR environment. You can adjust the brightness and the gamma here. So you would you can lower the gamma, give you and up the brightness to give you more contrast. I'll just leave them at the defaults. You're more than likely going to be doing that in Photoshop, wherever. So play around with them also. Quality and performance here, you can switch over to performance. It's not going to give you as clean an image, but it's going to like I rarely find Keyshot chugging or whatever. As I say, I've 12 cores, so if you're using it on an old crappy laptop or something, it might be a bit different. But I always leave this in quality. It doesn't really. I don't notice any difference basically. So ray bounces. If you're these are all preview settings, so these have nothing to do with your final render settings. So if you're going to be doing the screen grab, print screen workflow to get your passes, you can just whack these up, bang them up to the top. Self shadow, self explanatory. You can turn on GI, and then we have I never use NURBS. Haven't really done any animation rendering. The odd turntable or whatever, motion blur, ground illumination, not using the ground, but they're all self-explanatory. So this is one of the beautiful things about Keyshot, is it's so simple to use. It's compared to, I usually use V-Ray, so there's a lot more knobs and dials to twiddle around with V-Ray, but this is just so easy, so quick, and I think that's why Pixelogic really chose well. for assist our renderer to complement ZBrush. So that's all of that's all the project tabs, and I think I might break. This is 20 minutes now, so I think I'll pause here and break up another video to go over the library settings. I'm gonna pause this here, as I say, and I'll go over some of that other stuff, and I'll go over the materials and the library pane in the next video. Alright, cheers, thanks, good luck.